Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome back to the Muslim Career Guide with your host, Elia Gayoom. Today I'm joined with Sister Maylene. Jazakallah khair so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here today.
We're just as excited to have you. So do you want to give me like a brief introduction of who you are and what you do and just all of that?
Sure. So I am a brand strategist and branding and packaging designer. I'm also a brand coach. So I have my own company, Studio Noor Anisa. Prior to this, I also had, for about 5 to 7 years, I had a lifestyle Muslim kids shop, which is called Puppetry. Some of you might know it. I've recently sold a business, Alhamdulillah, so that I can focus on the branding studio. I'm also a mom to two young children who are very cheeky. So I think in a nutshell, that's all that is about me. Oh, sorry, and I forgot to mention. So with Studio Noor Anisa, my vision really, my goal is to be able to help elevate Muslim brands. So that's my niche, and to help them to reach their goals.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm super excited to actually jump into the interview. But before we do that, I'd like to do like a brief, like quick rapid fire question so you can give your most present answer.
Okay, sure.
Perfect. So what is your favorite book?
Oh, my favorite book would be Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah, that one's a popular one. It's a common one.
I, I've been told that, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's very good.
Yeah, I've heard it's very life changing, so I definitely have to get on that.
It is a game changer for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And what is your favorite recent purchase?
Oh, my favorite recent purchase. Oh, actually, you know what? It's actually this. It's so funny to say that it's a brand called Astrid, and they do shavers.
Oh, nice.
But the packaging and the branding was so amazing. I had to get it just to have a look myself. So I
Yeah.
think I can't imagine myself saying I'm excited about shaver, but the branding was just amazing. So yeah, that's my best purchase recently.
Yeah, that shows you branding makes a huge difference. And
Yeah.
calling or texting.
Oh, you know what? I like both.
Oh,
I
nice.
do like both. I think I
That's
do
good.
text a lot more. You know what? I'm gonna go with texting because I am on WhatsApp quite a lot. So yeah,
Nice.
texting.
And the last thing is, what is one thing that you don't understand?
One thing I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you're putting me on the spot. Like, okay, here's one. I don't understand why I can like tell my kids to do one thing like a million times and they still don't do it.
Yeah, honestly, putting people on the spot is also the best too. It's always really funny. But yeah, thank you so much for the rapid fire. So we'll jump straight into the interview. My first question is, how did you
Sure.
decide you want to become a branded packaging expert?
You know what? I didn't actually start out thinking that's what I want to do. Maybe I'll share a little bit story about myself, but basically, I think when I was 10, maybe 10 years old, I've always wanted to be everything: a lawyer, a zoologist, a doctor.
Yeah.
I wanted to have my own hotel chain. And actually, I was going to go to hotel and tourism. And then my mom told me that actually you're very creative. I see you doing things like that's always, why don't you pursue something like advertising or design? And this was back in Singapore. This was when all the parents, or 99% of parents, would tell their children to go and become a doctor.
Yeah.
And so for my mom to say that to me was quite, I suppose it was quite liberating.
Mhm.
And yeah, then I went into one of the very first design schools in Singapore, and it offered visual communications. So at that time, there wasn't even a degree, I think, in Singapore that was like design. It was only diplomas.
Right.
I went into that, and I started becoming. Oh, so then after that, I became a designer, and always it was being as I knew I wanted to be a packaging designer, but
Mhm.
then I kind of learned more about branding in my first job. And over time, sometimes you get a bit pigeonholed, especially when it came to UK as well. And I think I got a lot into branding and packaging. And then in my later years in my career, that's when I started to find out more about strategy and what that really means when you kind of apply it to design. So it's not just pretty design anymore. It's actually
Yeah.
design that works and communicates. And and yeah, so then that's kind of like how the journey's been. Like it's been like I've probably spent like close to 20 years in the industry now. I feel
Wow,
quite old saying
mashallah.
that, but
Yeah.
it was always with a start of, hey, I'm gonna do design, because from design you can do anything. Because once you have design and you know how to visually communicate, might even branch into interior design at some point, or you
Mm-hmm.
might go into, I don't know, like motion design. I mean, motion design is not really, because it takes more skills, but design is always design. Being a creative is always being a creative. You can kind of go into separate, you can kind of walk down separate roads and then kind of come back again if you want to. So I think there was a lot of flexibility being a creative, and I think that's what really appealed to me, to kind of take that road down.
Yeah, and I think that's really nice how careers and degrees have become so much more flexible. Like you could
Yeah.
we've had a few guests on the Muslim Career Guide where they had a degree in something and now their career is something that's completely unrelated. And so it's just so cool how there's flexibility now on the today that we can choose whatever careers that we want, and also even within degrees there's multiple careers that we can pursue. And
Yeah, and I think what's amazing is, sorry,
no,
I
no,
was
go
going to
ahead.
say, what's amazing is that, in the past, like, or at least in my time, there's always like set careers that you could
Right.
go down, but nowadays you create your own career. I think that's even more amazing than like feeling like you need to go down a certain path. If there's
Right.
not a job that you want to do right there right now, you could always see if there's spot a gap or spot a niche and do your own thing. And yeah, I think that's kind of like the trend nowadays.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of degrees, I know you talked about this a little bit, but what are the levels of education that you're required to go through, or even you went through yourself as a brand and packaging expert?
I never got a degree, I'll tell you that.
Oh,
Firstly because it wasn't offered in Singapore. Secondly,
mm-hmm.
because my family, or yeah, my mom wasn't, um like, we were not rich enough to send me to like New York or Australia for years and years studying design.
Yeah,
So, but then what I also found out is that as a creative, maybe as a designer, you don't need a degree. Like, what is
yeah,
important at the end of the day is your portfolio, and I know I could do that through working. You just learn on the job. So
mm-hmm.
I went to a polytechnic, that's what they call it in Singapore, and I did design, and we had like internship placements. And then after that, it was really through like my job that I just pick things up, and
Mm-hmm.
you just try and like learn as much as you can, and along the way pick up skills. And then it was always a case of me trying to get myself into the best agencies out there, because you learn so much just being in the thick of it, and learning from like others. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that I've learned, you cannot learn from a textbook. You can't learn from being in school. You have to get out there.
Yeah,
So I think that's a good thing. That's a cool thing about what I do, because you don't have to have that papers. Whereas like for a dentist, for example, because my husband's a dentist, I know he has to like do so much studying
yeah.
and in order to be qualified. But as a creative, there is again a lot more flexibility, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that also like gives people like ease. Like, let's just say you don't want to pursue a degree, you're not like done. Or you got still a future for
Yeah.
yourself. You can still get a career without a degree, and there's a lot of great careers that you can get without degrees. So it's again like it's really cool how much we've progressed in such a small time with careers, degrees, and things like that.
Yeah, can I just add one more thing as
Yeah, of
well?
course.
Yeah, recently as well, I think you probably noticed that you could just, if you want to learn anything, it's easy to pursue the education online now. It's a lot about self-education. You don't have to do the conventional way of going to university. Like
Mm-hmm.
brand strategy, even though I've done it in like as part of my job, I took a course, I took a programming just to have that refresher, and just to be very certain that what I'm doing is the right thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, self-education.
Yeah, no, because again, the technology has again, like we said, advanced so much also. So there's so many opportunities out there. But now I
Definitely.
want to kind of talk a little bit about puppetry, the Islamic lifestyle kids
Oh yeah.
brand that you found. So I was just wondering, why did you decide to start puppetry?
It started because I needed a creative outlet after having my first child,
Yeah.
and it was really kind of born out of, actually no, I wouldn't say it's born out of necessity, but like as a designer, when it came to like decorating her room. Like there were things I was very particular about, like the aesthetics, the style and everything. And then like I'll be looking for, I was really kind of drawn to the Scandinavian style of design, like very modern and like clean, but I was a little bit quirky. And so when I was trying to look for something for her room, like actually like that's quite expensive, but I can do I can do it
Yeah.
myself. And so I tried it, and then I think like it started off not being very niche. Like it didn't start off being an Islamic kind of lifestyle kit store. It was actually through trial and error, through looking at the demands out there, looking at what my needs were. So I think with when it came to like I need to teach my children about Islam, there was nothing out there that was again in the kind of style and aesthetics I wanted. And so I I started doing
Yeah.
like Quran verses, like my interpretation of them in like a style that I find would be appealing to my children.
Mhm.
And then people bought it. I was like, okay, I think I'm onto something here.
Yeah.
And that's how it started growing. And then the products expanded to like actually wall hangings and things like that.
Yeah, and were you like a little worried when you started focusing on the niche? Like, would you think that you would lose like a bit of your customer base, or do you think that your customer base actually grew after focusing on the Islamic kids
Oh
lifestyle?
my God, for sure, for sure. I was scared. I did worry
Yeah.
um for a while that I would lose my customers.
Hmm.
But you know, I think deep down I'm like, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, because like it I felt there was a lot more purpose when I'm doing something for the sake of Allah. And
Yeah.
actually this is kind of like a way of doing da'wah as well.
Yeah.
And so I took the risk. And to be honest, I think it was probably one of the best decisions I've made. And I think later on in my career, or later on in the years, actually, even with Studio Norinisa, I found that niching is probably a good thing. It always sounds scary, but it's a
Yeah.
good thing to niche, because then you stand out.
Right.
And I think that's what happened with puppetry. Like people started knowing puppetry like for the different kind of designs that it did, and also for being kind of Islamic. And I think, I mean, nowadays you find a lot more options out there, but I think at that time, about 7 years ago, there weren't many Islamic focused shops. And yes,
Right.
I lost people who like I lost customers, but I gained so much more,
Hmm.
so much more. I think so much more fulfillment. And I think that it's a good change for me. It was a good transition for me. So yeah, it was scary, but it was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
No, I think it's so inspiring to hear that you did it for Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. You did it because like as a form of dawah. Like you did it as in just to as that was your passion. Obviously, that was like a belief of yours, and so it's important that like sometimes we can be scared of that. Whether that's pursuing anything, I guess as a Muslim, sometimes our responsibilities. But when we
Mm,
do it, we see the long term effects and the benefits of it, and so that like you're a pure example of that. So which is really cool.
thank you.
Yeah, and what was the process of you turning a like idea into an actual product that was on the website?
So okay, so what it is usually, again, it came out of like a need, so for my own children.
Right.
And like I'm thinking like, oh, actually, how do I like I how to put it? The like ideas sometimes just pop up like popcorn, really. Like, because you're like doing things in your everyday life.
Yeah.
And I always see like my brain as being this like sponge that's just soaking in all these images and things that I see on Pinterest. I am on Pinterest a lot, by the way. And
Mhm.
like I'll be seeing something, for example. Okay, for example, like there might be something that is not Islamic, but like something cool that I've seen in the Scandinavian toys kind of market. I'm like, oh, actually, that looks really cool. And like, how do I do an Islamic twist to it? And
Mhm.
obviously not copying, because that's not good.
Right.
But like, okay, what's my own take on something like that? Or can I kind of really kind of juxtapose that idea with something else and come up with something unique that could go under puppetry? And then it usually starts with like, if it's a print, I'll just do it on my Mac and just to try out. Or otherwise, like my cloud hanging, which actually is my bestseller still,
Yeah, I
the
saw
Allah
that.
everywhere you go.
Yeah.
That cloud, oh, it's interesting. That idea was like before that I didn't even think about doing products, and it was actually through meeting a friend, like some like we just bumped into each other very randomly randomly machine, like those kind of
Mm-hmm.
like craft copy, let's take version. And I thought, actually, let's push this. And I did a word version, and that just people went crazy for it. And alhamdulillah. So
Yeah.
that's how we started. And I think sometimes it's a case of, you know what, you have an idea, just put it out there, just try it. Because that might not, like the first time it came out might be not how it's going to end up, like a
Mm-hmm.
few versions down the road. And that's the beauty of it. You're always tweaking, you're always making it better. But like my husband would say, just get the MVP out there. And like it's through getting people's feedback and seeing how people react that you can keep improving and making it the best version that it can be.
Right.
But yeah, it usually starts, I would say, start with the idea. You can sketch it out. You can do it on a Mac or computer or like a tablet, whatever that is, or just create it basically. And
Yeah, and I mean that's so cool. Like again, you don't really think when you see a product on the website, you don't see the background work of it and the lengthy process that it takes. But it's so cool when people describe like the whole design process that they took and from like just an idea into actual reality. And taking that risk is important because you never know something will work, but you have to try it.
you have to try. You
Yeah.
have to try it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, it will work. You won't know if it will work if you can't try it. So you got to try it out at least once. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so one of the questions that I had was, I know you did sell puppetry, and so when did you come to the conclusion that you wanted to sell puppetry and actually do it?
I mean, to be honest, for me, it was a really, really hard decision to make.
Yeah.
For me, what it was with puppetry, one of the main reasons I started it was so that I could be like have that freedom to not be tied down to a job, like 9 to 5 job, and have
Mm-hmm.
the freedom to be present with my kids and my
Mm-hmm.
family. That was the main goal. But as time went by, I realized I loved the creative part of it. I didn't like the business side so much. Like I was struggling with that.
Yeah.
And for me, it was also taking up a lot of the time. And then at one point, I thought, like, why am I doing this? Because it's not serving me. For someone else it might, it might work really, really well for someone. And I spoke to a coach, and this is why sometimes having a coach or a mentor is really helpful, because they help you see the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to someone, and she said, if you want this to work, it might mean that you would have a bigger team, and it might mean that you'd be working like 60 hours a week. Is that the kind of life you want? And I thought, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I can keep doing that and still have that time to spend with my kids. I'm not willing to sacrifice that. And that's when I think I started going into that's about the same time so happened that I went into like the branding side of things again. I'm on this membership called the Intention Membership with Salam Sadaf, and like I realized a lot of small businesses on there were asking these questions that I knew the answers to with regard to branding.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found that actually I could go back to branding, because now there's even more a market for it and it will keep growing. That's when I started to let go of puppetry. Like, actually, maybe it's time to transition. I tried running both at the same time, but it's hard work.
Yeah.
So I found
Definitely.
someone who was willing to, like, once I found someone who was able to give puppetry the love and care that I couldn't anymore, I was ready to let go. And I think it's all for the better. And now I can at least focus on doing greater things, because now with Studio Noanisa, I feel like actually this is my bigger calling.
Right.
Like, I wanted to make a positive difference. I wanted to make an impact on the Muslim community. With puppetry, I could do it to like a certain market, but as Studio No Anissa, I could do so much more, because now I can help the businesses who are going to be helping more people. I mean, that's how I see it anyway. That's my bigger
Yeah.
vision. But yeah, that was how the process kind of ended up being.
Yeah, I mean, Masha, I think some people like can look at something where they're like, oh, I'm not as interested in this anymore, but want to stay there because that's what they're comfortable with, because it's like a stable job for them and it's something that they want to keep with. But taking the risk, because is so important because you can also make a bigger impact when you're more passionate for something.
Yeah, definitely. I think with puppetry, like when I speaking to another coach,
Yeah.
like she said, like when you talk about puppetry, I can see like you just don't have that much energy about it anymore. Like it felt like it was a drain on my energy,
Yeah.
and I realized actually, yeah, I don't talk about it as passionately as I do branding, and I think that's when I realized maybe it's time to let it go, because I'm not gonna, I won't be able to do as much good for it. Like I knew it could go places and I had big dreams for it, but I don't think I think at some point I realized I wasn't the person to take it that to that place.
Right. And you started Studio Nuranisa, which is the brand strategy like company. So how did you decide to start Studio Nuranisa, and why did you decide to start it?
So like I said, it was on the intention membership that I realized actually people wanted it. And
Mm-hmm.
I have to say I was a bit apprehensive starting it. Like I was dragging my feet a little because I was a bit nervous
Yeah.
about it. But then, you have to do it, right? You have to do it to know whether it works or not. And and I think that the good thing about online businesses is that there isn't much at stake. Like you don't have to pay for a brick and mortar store. And with an like with the agents or the branding studio, unlike puppetry where I had to, put in my own money to get stock and make things, with the agency, I didn't have to do that. I mean, I might have to pay like for programs I use and things like that, but I was already paying for them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an easy one to kind of test the waters in a way. And it was just a case of putting myself out there and saying, hey, I'm May and I'm doing this, like I'm who I'm trying to help and everything. And then over time, I think it started on Instagram, and I just had a very simple landing page. I was supposed to do a website, which I never really got around to. So I just did
Yeah.
a simple landing just to get it all out there and have a start. And I started building on my Instagram to get the content and the value out there. And then, alhamdulillah, slowly I got clients. I got more and more clients, and then people started hearing about me. And yeah, so it's I think it's a case of you just have to get yourself out there, otherwise people don't know what you can do or what you can offer.
Yeah, exactly. And how did you initially find clients? Was it through the salon set of coaching that you were in, or were there other ways that you found clients initially?
So what it was initially I kind of yeah, initially my first few clients were from the intention membership because people knew me, and then they were like, oh, actually I need to, I mean, obviously for me giving so much kind of, like I was being very active on the
Mm-hmm.
Facebook group and like giving advice and things like that. And then alhamdulillah sort of asked me to be the brand coach as well on the intention membership. So that was very helpful for myself, and as inshallah for other people too.
Yeah.
And I think people started to trust what I'm able to do. And I did have like a few members come forward and say like, oh, do you think you can help us with branding? So I started off that way. But then after that, like through Instagram, and actually I had to also what I did was I also went on LinkedIn and started being more active on LinkedIn, because that's where some of my ideal customers kind of hang out in a way. And I just kind of approached people and
Mm-hmm.
just connected. It was about, I think, the early stages, and I can't even remember much now. Early stages was me just basically trying to connect with other brands out there, connecting with potential clients, and speaking to them, and really like saying like, hey, if you ever need branding, I'm here, or like we can have a chat, that kind of thing. um yeah, and what I realized was once I've got work in and I could show those work on my Instagram or in my portfolio, that's when like it started to have a snowball effect, because
Mm-hmm.
people get to see what I can actually do for other brands, and then that's kind of was appealing for them to like say, oh yeah, actually, I think she can help us, or like I really like your aesthetics and the way you think about brands, like let's have a chat. And then it kind of went on that way.
Yeah, I mean, networking and word of mouth, like also that's something that I've learned through the Muslim Career Guide is it has created such impact for people and businesses and like that,
For sure.
because that's what people trust more. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, exactly. And so just what is the hardest part of being a brand strategist, I guess, during in your job, in your career?
I think the one of the hardest things was, especially because I was starting out on my own,
Right.
it's actually actually being confident of what I was gonna say. I mean, the thing is, I knew, how do I put it? I know what I like. I know the things that I say, like, because I've had that experience. But to because like different strategists, different designers, like people have their own different opinions, they have their own different ways of saying things. To say like, this is what I think about this, or this is what I think about that, and being very certain, that
Mhm.
was a little bit nerve-wracking at first for me. And just being different, like saying, I think saying like, oh, I am here only to help Muslims, like I'm niching to Muslims, that was also a little bit of like, it felt like a little bit of a risk
Yeah.
or like a leap of faith to be saying like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. Because when I remember initially when I told some friends like, hey, I think this is what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go open up, not open up, I'm gonna start like a branding studio, and
Yeah.
I want to help just Muslim businesses, because I think there is an untapped market. And I think there's many kind of businesses coming out, especially with the pandemic as well. And you get people telling you like, oh, Muslims don't pay, and like they want
Yeah.
things for free, and they want it done like immediately for really good
Yeah.
like really good quality. And it's having the conviction to say, no, actually, I think this will work, and this is how I want to do it. Like all that, when you're a, and this is not just for brand strategies, I think this is for any business person,
Right.
like to have that conviction, to have that faith, and say, this is, no, I'm going to do it this way because I see a niche. I see that I can help someone by doing things my way.
Yeah.
That was the part, I think, that was difficult, because there's going to be so much self-talk and imposter syndrome and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah. So for me, it was surrounding myself with the right people, and also obviously having a coach or two that has helped me to kind of like stay on track in a way. And then obviously du'as and everything. But
Of
yeah.
course, of course. You know, there will always be people that will doubt you, and you'll be the person that will doubt yourself. But sometimes it's just like, those big and crazy ideas that people doubted are the ones that have also been huge and have blown up. So again, like we said earlier, it's like you will
Yeah.
never know if it'll work if you won't try it. Yeah, and
Yeah,
just
precisely. Just do it.
exactly, you gotta just do it. And then the second last question I have for you is, how has your perception of branding changed from going from a brand and packaging expert from puppetry all the way to founding Studio Nuranisa?
How sorry, what do you mean? Like, how has it changed?
Yeah, like how's your perception of branding changed? Like, do you think that you see branding in a different way? Do you have different strategies when it comes to branding?
You know what? No, it hasn't changed, I think. Has it changed? I don't think it's changed. I mean, with puppetry, when I was doing my own brand, obviously, like, because I've been in branding for so many years, it was something that came natural to me.
Right.
I think I would say the only thing that might have changed a bit is when I've had to start up Studio Norinisa. I've had to be more like, I find myself really kind of saying things out loud and
Mm-hmm.
repeating myself about certain things about branding, that kind of just, what's the word I want, cemented like my beliefs about certain things about branding, like,
Right.
and I started to really form my opinions, because I've had to work with a lot more clients, especially in the Muslim industry or market, and like seeing other people's struggles helps me as well. So I think it's kind of, what it's done is open up my yeah, open up the perception, or open up the view, the eye opener is still
Mm-hmm.
what I want. It's been eye opening, because suddenly, like, it's not just about puppetry and puppetry's problems anymore, it's about all the other businesses out there. And
Right.
it's quite insightful actually to see, like, actually some of us are very similar in many ways, and there are also obviously some different issues, and it's kind of like, how do you tackle each different issue like in your own way kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're now, instead of solving the issues that puppetry commonly had, or even just had in general, like you might be solving a business's issues that has not like was completely different than puppetry because they're completely different businesses.
Yeah.
Mhm. And if you could give one piece of advice to anyone who wants to become a brand strategist, what would that be?
You know what? I would say like don't limit yourself. Okay, this was something that someone said to me when before I became a student at a design school, or actually
Mhm.
maybe when I just started out. And that was like, let's say you're someone who is interested in like you're a creative, for example, and you're wanting to become a designer, or but then you don't know what it is. I would say go and walk into a bookshop, go into art bookshop, creative bookshop, and just see where you get drawn to. For me, like it was always packaging. I was always hanging out in the packaging section
Yeah.
in my local kind of design bookstore. And that's where I found like my biggest love. Um, but I would say, you know, keep your options open and try a bit of everything so you can find what you enjoy the best. Like I never thought I would be a brand strategist, and I had been in the industry for like 20 years, and it's only when I started my own business I realized actually this is what I like doing a
Mm-hmm.
lot more now. As a creative, you know, it will always change. Just go with the ebb and flow and see where it goes. But yeah, follow your heart, I would say.
Yeah, I mean that's
Is
an amazing piece of advice for everyone. So thank you so much, Sister Maylene. Where can everyone find you? On social media or whatever like that.
Okay, so you'll probably find me hanging out most at Instagram. So you can find me at studio.noranisa. Um, and I'm also on LinkedIn. If you want to find me, it's Maylene Seah. I'm sure like Aliyah will type it out somewhere. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think these two places are where you can find me. And if you're interested about becoming a designer, even if you're just creative, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram. I'll be happy to kind of connect with you and chat with you. If you've got any questions, happy to answer them.
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity, and we'll leave the links in the description box down below, along with SunnahCamp's links. Again, just thank you so much for joining me today, Sister Maylene. I'm sure so many people have benefited from this, and inshallah, we'll see
Inshallah.
you all next Thursday. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you. Walaikum salam.